Good evening, everybody, and once again, welcome to a hands-on lab with Apache Hudi, Delta Streamer, and EMR Serverless. So we are gonna basically spin up a Delta Streamer on EMR Serverless this time. So without wasting any further time, let's get started straight into action. First, I would like to read a couple of definitions and then we'll dive into the lab section. As data volume continues to grow exponentially, the traditional method of batch processing and ETL has proven to be insufficient for many use cases. With the rise of real-time data processing, organizations are looking for solutions that can handle incremental ingestion and change data capture with ease. This is where Apache Hudi Delta Streamer comes in. Hudi Delta Streamer is a powerful, open source data management tool that enables incremental ingestion of data into Hudi. It provides robust and scalable solution for capturing and processing data changes in real time, making it ideal use case for log processing, sensor data, IoT devices, and much more. It can easily handle data from various sources such as Kafka, Kinesis, etc., and also works with wide range of file formats such as JSON, Avro, Parquet, etc. So this video, we are gonna basically download some sample Parquet file which was generated by DMS. We're gonna upload them manually on a S3 folder, and then we're gonna launch an EMR serverless cluster and run the Delta Streamer. So let's get started straight into action. All right, so let's get started, right? So the first thing, by the way, all the steps will be given on the GitHub section, including all the code I run in. So again, the first step, I'm gonna add these steps, okay, step 2 and step 3. But the first step is basically go to this link. If you go to the link, you will see these two Parquet files. What I want you to do is download these files on your computer. So right click and click on download, okay. Once you download the file, then what you need to do is basically go to your S3, click on create folder and create a folder called raw. And then what you wanna do is simply drag these files into that folder so that we have some sample data set to work with. I've already done that. As you can see, I have two Parquet files. If I just want to show you really quickly, if I can actually query this data using S3 select, I select JSON out there. Again, as you can see, this is how the data looks like. These are all the attributes my data has, right? Again, it's a very simple data, it's a fake data, right? So the step 1 is essentially create an S3 bucket and upload these sample Parquet files into the bucket. Now the next step is we need to launch an EMR serverless cluster and then submit a Delta Streamer job. So let's learn how to do that part. Now that you have some sample files, now let's basically start the EMR cluster and create our EMR serverless application. So come to your AWS management console, click on EMR serverless on this one, okay. Then click on manage application. Now here click on create application, give it a name. Select the type as Spark, select the version as 6.10, which is the latest. Rest everything to default and click on create application. Once you have created the application, you need to start the application. So click on start application over here. Again, I've already started the application and here you can see the status is in the started state. Now here we can start submitting jobs. Now basically I'll walk you over the Python code. The Python code basically submits the Delta Streamer job. So let's see that in action, okay? So let me quickly share my screen. All right, so I'm gonna go slow over here. So over here from line 1 to line 10, these are simple imports, okay? So nothing crazy. Here I'm defining my AWS access, secret, and region. So please make sure to put your access, secret, and the region. I'm creating a client object, right? So basically I'm creating a Boto3 client object, EMR serverless, right? And I have a simple function which basically fires a job. Now I'm gonna basically talk about what you need to change here. This is the Glue database. So basically make sure that you have a Glue database. So what we're gonna do, again, I'm gonna do these labs with you, right? So first what I will be doing is I'll come to the database. I'll make sure I delete this one. Add database, click on basically whatever name you decide to give here, make sure you give the database name over here. Click on create database, okay? Now the table name is invoice because I gave you some sample data set basically, right? So we're gonna say the table name as invoice. Operation type would be absurd. The table type is copy on write. The record key is something unique in your data point, which is a primary key. You can also use a composite key, but again, I'm using invoice ID because in the Parquet file that we essentially have, basically the file that you just downloaded from Google Drive, right? So this has a column called record key. So hopefully, so that's basically my unique identifier. Replicate DMS timestamp. There's a column called, replicate DMS timestamp. Again, these columns was basically generated. This column was basically generated by DMS. So basically, anytime there's an insert update happening on the database, it would essentially generate this basically column, right? Then let me quickly share my screen. For partition field, we are gonna basically partition our data. So I'll just quickly show you. So if I go to S3, quickly over here. Yeah, so we are gonna partition our data by state. So I'm gonna use, let me make sure I use the right one. Again, this entire Python code will be given to you, right? So don't worry, delta stream or source. So basically over here is where your raw files are, right? So what we're gonna do is basically I'm gonna come to the raw section, click on copy S3 URI, and over here you see I'm gonna paste that one here. Okay, make sure you don't provide the slash at the end, okay? Otherwise it's gonna throw probably an error. Target path, meaning where do I want my Hudi data lake, right? So basically this is where I want my data lake in this S3 bucket into a folder called Hudi. Now over here you see an application ID. So that application ID is usually over here. So when you created an application on EMR serverless, right? This is you got an ID, right? So basically come here and copy this ID and put this over here. Execution timeout, basically you can give a timeout. Execution role, you can create an admin role for demo purposes, right? Job name will be basically, I'm creating a dynamic job name. Again, all these stuff you don't need to touch. You don't need to touch at all, right? Again, these are certain configuration. Again, if you observe, everything is a placeholder, right? So everything is essentially a placeholder. And over here, I'm submitting the job. So as you can see, client.start job run. So I'm gonna submit this job, right? So let's basically try this out, right? So the demo is pretty straightforward, right? You need the sample Parquet file. You start your EMR serverless cluster. Basically, you create an application. You use the Python code that I have given you, and you submit a job. So before I submit the job, I wanna basically go over to the S3. Again, I don't have any folder called Hudi over here, okay? So just an FYI. Again, I don't have any tables in a glue database called HudiDB. Again, it's empty. So now what I'll do is I'll try to submit this job, and let's see how it goes. So I'm gonna run this on my computer. Again, you can run it on a Lambda function as well. So the job has been submitted at this point. So if I quickly go back to my cluster, there you go, it's in the running state. Observe, see, running state. Now as you can see, these are all the configuration that was basically tasked, right? And if you observe now, the job is in the running state. Again, everything is done, it's serverless, so you don't have to manage server. That's the beauty, right? You can get started pretty fast. So if you refresh, here you can see we saw a Hudi metadata, and soon we should see certain base file or the Parquet file being generated, okay? So I'm gonna wait here. I will basically come here, and let me make sure I did pass the partition path. Just want to make sure I did pass that. Yeah, looks good. So let's simply wait at this point. Again, it is still in the running state, which is good. Now if I go to my S3, and as you can see, these folders have been created. These are my partition, and this is my base file or the Hudi Parquet file, right? Also now if I go to my glue database, if I refresh on HudiDB, here you can see I see a table called invoice. At this point also, I should be able to run an ad hoc query as well. So if I do a preview table, I can run an ad hoc query at this point, right? So basically, if I quickly come here, and here you can see the job has been succeeded. So you can also run the Delta Streamer in a continuous mode, but probably I would say if you wanna run the Delta Streamer in a continuous mode, serverless is a great option. Maybe you wanna compare the managed EMR cluster as well. Maybe if you have a lot of continuous job you're running, I guess managed cluster would be much better. But if you have pretty less job and you don't want to manage servers and all that stuff, serverless is one of the best way to go for. Again, I personally go for serverless. I love serverless, as I said, right? The entire code, the Python code, the sample data set, everything, all the steps are given on my GitHub section, and the lab is pretty straightforward. All you need to do, download the sample Parquet file, then create an EMR serverless cluster, right? Copy the application ID, use the Python code that I have, and basically try to learn it, okay? That's all I want to say. Again, I strongly encourage you to try this out. That's how you're gonna learn about it, right? By making mistakes, and then you learn, right? So that's it for the video. I hope you have enjoyed, and I hope you learned something new, right? And if you have any more questions, let me know your question in the comment section, and we'll try to orchestrate this as well using step functions. So I'll show you how to schedule a Delta Streamer jobs, how to orchestrate that. All of that I'll show you in the maybe upcoming next video. Thank you, and I'm looking forward for your questions, and please try the labs out.